Greetings and welcome back to Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Look around. It's not just the press conferences in D.C. that reek of this utter confusion. Just walk the streets. Walk the streets and you can see it plain as day. Those elected to protect and serve are either lost or deliberately ignoring the job they were chosen to do. If they're not tackling the issues that matter most to citizens, then what the hell are they doing? Huh? In Los Angeles, Mayor Bass makes headlines for giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens out of fear they might be deported. But when is the last time you saw on TV laying out a real plan to clean up the streets, to eliminate crime, or to shut down the encampments choking our sidewalks? You see, here is the thing. The loudest voices on TV, the Democrats lecturing America about crime, don't even live in the neighborhoods where most Americans actually feel its impact. Middle class and inner city families live with daily danger, break-ins, car thefts, assaults. People keep their heads on a swivel just walking to the store. Yet we're told it's not a big deal. And the thing about it is that's not an accident. It's gaslighting. They need you distracted. They need you focused on their narratives, not the reality outside of your own door. Notice what stories they cling to. Over and over and over again, we're drug into the past. January 6th, talked about endlessly. But the BLM riots of 2020, the ICE raid riots, entire city blocks torched, businesses destroyed, neighborhoods that still have not recovered and probably won't. Those events are treated like ancient history. Why? Because admitting the truth means admitting their policies have failed. It's easier to cherry pick outrage than face the wreckage that they helped create. But there's a turning point, a light at the end of the tunnel, I think. Folks who stayed silent out of fear of being unliked are now speaking out. This could set a new precedent, especially in Democrat-run cities where crime runs unchecked. Because let's be real, the only thing that stops a criminal is punishment. Without consequences, what's the incentive to live by the rules? There isn't one. And deep down inside, everyone knows it. And speaking of reality versus fantasy, check out this next clip. It's a perfect snapshot of just how out of touch people really are that are in power. Check it out.
Violent crime continues in D.C. Last night, a man was shot and killed in Logan Circle in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is firing back at Donald Trump for sending in the troops.
I believe that the president's view of D.C. is shaped by his COVID era experience during his first term. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID, but we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime.
A huge decrease in crime. Let's bring in the chair of the D.C. Police Union, Gregory Pemberton, and he joins us this morning. Gregory, great to have you here. I guess my first question is, why do you support the president's takeover?
Ashley, thanks for having me.
Sure.
We completely agree with the president here that crime in the district is out of control and something needs to be done about it. This concept that crime is down is really an old trope. They're using statistics in a way that makes it appear that crime is going down, but our rank and file officers know that we're going call to call to call for armed carjacking, stabbings, robberies, shootings, homicides, and the crime isn't going anywhere. And so we welcome the assistance, and whether that's federal agents or the National Guard, we'll use it. We'll do whatever we can to get bad guys off the streets and try to keep citizens of the district safe. Our concern here is that this is a temporary measure. This is only going to last for 30 days, and then the feds and the National Guard will be on their way, and we'll be left holding the bag. Our agency right now is an authorized strength of 4,000 sworn officers, and we're currently sitting at 3,180 with more than 800 vacancies for the position of sworn police officer. And that's the main reason why we can't keep these streets safe. The department relies on 2 million hours of overtime every year year to try to close this gap. So the underlying issues of the laws that have been passed by the DC Council, we hope that this 30 days gives some insight into from the feds to see exactly how terrible these laws are and how they've destroyed the police department, so that we can work to get those things corrected.
You know, DC Police Commander Michael Pulliam is under investigation for allegedly changing crime statistics to make it appear that violent crime has fallen considerably. So I guess the question is, has crime fallen or not? And based on what you just told us, if there's a crime has not fallen.
I don't think so. And that's a very interesting aspect of the story that doesn't seem to be reported, is that they have a command staff official who's alleged to have been going into police databases and changing felonies to misdemeanors to try to keep these crime numbers down. Listen, I know Commander Pulliam, and he's a stand-up guy. What I suspect is that this is a pattern of practice, and this is something that's been ordered from the top to make sure the commanders are managing the crime stats to make it appear the crime is lower than it is, which is a disservice to the city. It's a disservice to the officers. And above all, it's a disservice to the victims of these crimes when we're not taking the proper police reports and investigating them and advocating for those proper resources.
So the truth is, and everybody knows that crime happens where they allow it. Now, the mayor of D.C., well, she knows there's a serious problem, but because that problem generates a lot of money for a lot of people, she has to be very careful with every word she says, because let's be honest, there does not have to be this much crime. It just doesn't. You walk through Beverly Hills or any other wealthy enclave. What do you see? Do you see carjackings on every corner? Of course not. Why? It's not magic. It's governance. You see, in those areas, if you commit a crime, you're prosecuted. No questions asked. People know not to test those neighborhoods because they'll be gone for years if they try. Now think about it. If you're a criminal and you want a big payday, shouldn't you target places with more money? Yet, crime concentrates in poorer areas. And some people will say that's because that's where they live. But you can jump on a bus or drive a couple of miles to Beverly Hills or something like that. But that's by design. That's by design. Leaders let it happen because it keeps certain people employed, certain budgets inflated, and certain nonprofits funded. The sad truth, in these neighborhoods, crime pays. Not just for the criminals, so you can call them criminals, but for the politicians and the prison complex and so on and so forth. Trump's 30-day plan. Sensible people see it for what it is, a test run. Some fear that once the month ends, everything will go back to normal. I don't think so. I believe it's just an opening move with a longer strategy behind it. It shows ordinary citizens that clean, safe streets are possible. When people see it with their own eyes, when they experience it, they'll start demanding it from their leaders. Now there's a whole, the crime is down lie. If you live in these communities, you know that there is no real dip, no real drop in crime. And in many cases, it's rising. Yeah, politicians stand at podiums and tell you it's going down. Why would you accept that? Because they think you're too distracted, too worn down, too uninformed to challenge it. Meanwhile, they cash in, not just from their salaries, but from outside money tied to keeping the chaos going. Here's something most people won't say out loud. For there to be an upper class, there must be a lower class. Your struggles are the measuring stick for their status. If you rose to their level, their upper level, they wouldn't be upper anymore. And yes, many of these TV commenters quietly agree with Trump's approach. They just can't say it on air. In public, they keep pushing the propaganda. In private, they fear the same things you do. Never forget, in chaos, there's profit. In peace, there's none. That's why so many people in power would rather manage crime than eliminate it, because if the streets were truly safe, their gravy train would derail overnight. Check out this clip.
This is a fascinating story because so many people have been calling me over the past couple of days going, Washington should have gotten involved years ago. This place is dangerous. It's a mess. It's a wreck and whatever. And then they'll go on Twitter, this is the worst outrage of all time, the shocking, which I understand. It's like people need to express their concerns about Donald Trump going too far. We saw what happened back in 2020 with the National Guard. Certainly can't have any repeat of that. Don't want the federalization of the entire city. But man, I don't care what the crime statistics say. Crime has been a problem in this city for the 32 years I've been living inside and outside of the city. It's just, even now, Meek and I, we're talking to somebody who lives in the city. These are all Democrats who said, our friends won't walk more than 3 blocks in D.C. at night without feeling. Man, it's door to door. I mean, I go into those bikes, me. I love riding the bikes around. I'll ride around and I go door to door. I don't slow down. It's very dangerous there. Glad the crime rates are going down, but there is no sense of security for people who've been living in that city for 30 years. And again, my beef going back to my days in Congress always was, well, why isn't Congress doing more? I mean, they're really letting the nation's capital be guided by the lunacy of Marion Barry and some people on the city council that have some crazy ideas about, stopping the police from doing their jobs. But it's the nation's capital. So I think Congress and the president should have stepped in 30 years ago. I will just go back to the fact that, the people that are cheering this on privately are not like right-wing Republicans, are not MAGA people. A lot of our friends are in the media, and also Democrats that worked on Joe Biden's campaign, that worked on other campaigns, that are saying, yeah, I'd like to feel safe walking around this city. If the federal government can be a positive partner in keeping the streets safe, while again forming a partnership with the DC police and not taking over, then at least the people I've spoken with that live in DC day in, day out see this as a positive step.
Do you realize how insane it is that people who know how dangerous the streets are will still make money to go on television and argue against their own safety? That is not just bad judgment. That is self-destruction. And they'll do it. They'll do it smiling into the camera, because for them, nothing matters more than staying on TV, keeping their seat in the Democratic cabal, and holding on to perks of their class. Think about it. If they're willing to risk their own safety for politics, imagine the jeopardy they're willing to put you in. Your life, your family's safety, that's just collateral damage to them. They'll protect their fake friends. They'll protect their gala invitations, their elite status, even if it means turning a blind eye to the chaos right outside of your door. There are only 2 kinds of people who will never tell the truth about crime in these neighborhoods. 1, those doing the crimes, or protecting the people who are. That could be a son, that could be a cousin, that could be a friend. And number 2, people who don't live anywhere near the danger, who watch it on TV like it's just another scene in Dragnet. That is it, and that is all. And with that, let's roll into the next clip with Judge Jeanine Pirro, because she doesn't sugarcoat it, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Check this out.
There's been a great deal of discussion about crime in the district. And the other day, I wanted to get a sense of what is actually happening in the District of Columbia. I asked for the number of teens who have been shot and killed by gunfire. Teens, everyone under the age of 20. As you can see, in 2024, we have, I believe I said it was, how many? As you can see, in 2024, we have 29 individuals who were shot and killed in the district. All teens, some as young as 3 years of age, okay, because of gunfire. Some of these cases are solved, some of them are not solved. But what this makes clear to me is that there is a whole community that is suffering because of the violent crime in this district. And anyone who wants to tell me the crime is down and that we don't need an emergency focus on crimes of violence, all they need to do is take a look at this and talk to the loved ones and the family members of these individuals, all shot and killed long before their time.
These politicians and media talking heads have done such a thorough job at brainwashing people in the inner city. They've actually convinced them that a crackdown on crime would somehow make their lives worse, not better. Think about how backwards that is. Folks in the so-called hood constantly point out how safe and clean the upper class areas are, how crime isn't there, how their streets are nice. But the moment someone tries to bring that level of safety to the hood, here come the race hustlers. Here come the race hustlers ready to shut it down. People like Maxine Waters here in LA, or others like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson from the past. They've made careers out of keeping the chaos alive. They go on TV, they collect checks, they tell black communities they're better off with no real law enforcement, as if living in squalor is somehow freedom. They push the lie that cleaning up the bad apples means the police are coming after all black people instead of actual criminals. It's crazy. People finally get a shot being safe, being in livable neighborhoods, but the media and so-called leaders convince them that order and safety somehow is the enemy. That's not advocacy. That's sabotage for a paycheck. Check out this next clip. You'll see the delusion in action for yourself.
It just feels like a microscope is now on like black people, and listening to the press conference on my way over here, every city that he named, Chicago, Oakland, Baltimore, who's, by the way, Baltimore's crime is down 50%. All of them are black cities. So it just feels not only like a target on DC's back, but also mine as a black man in DC. It's just, it doesn't feel like home anymore. I was just texting my mom and my girlfriend like, yo, I think it may be time to like move out of DC, because for one, I'm not wanted, and two, it's not safe, and I kind of was left speechless, because it's just, this isn't home anymore. It doesn't feel like home anymore.
What?
Donald Trump, Rev, says he's actually making Washington, D.C. safer. Is that what's happening?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump was sat in the White House several hours during January 6th while his followers were beating police officers, Capitol Police, and others, and never picked up the phone or picked up his Twitter and told them to stop. So you've got to deal with his record. His record is that if people are violent and disobey the law and assault law enforcement and are supportive of him, that's fine. But on some others that he claims are out of control, because the data says that crime and violent crime has gone down in Washington, he's going to send out the National Guard. Well, why didn't he send it out January 6th? This is clear politics. It's aimed at black mayors. It's aimed at also trying to take the Epstein case and the files off the front page. And it's drama that is at the expense of people. And it's sad. We're going to end up with stop and frisk in D.C. He will take it to other cities while they, at the same time, try to rob people of their proper districts according to the census in Texas, and will do it other places.
So in the last clip, the guy said he doesn't feel safe anymore because the police are coming to clean up the bad actors. You know what? Let's stop right there. He admits he's not one of the bad actors, but somehow believes he's being targeted. So what's the solution? Move somewhere the law isn't enforced and the bad actors run free. This is the kind of insanity I'm talking about. The reality is, and here in Los Angeles, anybody who's being honest knows if you walk into any black club or so-called people of color spot in the hood, you're going to be put through searches just like you're at the TSA. Why? Because they know it's not safe. Meanwhile, go to a non-black establishment. Sometimes you don't even need an ID to walk in. Why? Because everyone knows it's safe. And you'll never see these politicians who oppose cracking down on crime hanging out in those unsafe spots. No. They're in the neighborhoods where Trump and the elite spend time because they know the truth. They just want you to eat the lie. And here's an even uglier part of the whole situation. They're paid to sell you the lie constantly, and they're okay with that. That lie often costs people's lives. People like Al Sharpton keep dragging out the January 6th narrative as if that's your biggest problem while ignoring the crime that you face every single day. They keep you stuck in a permanent victim mentality so you'll never climb up the ladder, because once you're independent, they lose power over your mind. It was the same scam we saw with Kamala Harris, pretending she was African-American just to rally a base. None of these people did that for free. They were paid to sell an image they didn't even believe in. And yet somehow they got most of us to believe it. That's why it's time to stop listening to these voices, start seeing for ourselves, and start demanding that the lies stop. And let me say this again. We don't want crime just to go down. No, that's political wordplay. We want crime eliminated, just like it is in Beverly Hills, just like it is in Martha's Vineyard, the same way it's eliminated in their neighborhoods. In those places, a single incident gets treated like the biggest news of the year because it's so rare. That's what we want to. That's what we deserve to. Now, watch this clip with Simone Sanders, one of I would say one of the top tier race grifters that's always on TV, always willing to say anything for the narrative. And watch how she gets destroyed because people are finally sick and tired of the game. Check this out.
I don't think so. So until we start talking about that, we are really adding to the fear mongering, in my opinion, and amping up the rhetoric when we should be tamping it down because Donald Trump has given us rhetoric and not the reality.
You don't think more police make streets safer?
No, Joe. I'm a black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer. When you walk down the streets of Georgetown, you don't see a police officer on every corner, but you don't feel unsafe. So what is it about talking about places like Southeast D.C., right, Ward 8, if you will, that people say, well, we need more officers to make us safe? I think we have to rethink what safety means in America.
What? Well, there have been black city council members in New York City when people were talking about defunding the police, saying the people we represent are the people who need police officers the most, need police officers the most as safety officers in schools, need police officers the most so our children can walk from their homes to school without being stopped, 5-10 times by drug dealers or people that are going to assault them. I don't think this is an issue of black versus white when you're talking about safety. There are a lot of black Americans who don't feel safe in their homes, in their neighborhoods. And when they hear people talking about defunding the police, it freaks them out. I'm not saying that's what you're saying.
Defund the police is not good. I've never supported defund. I think you're making a good point, Joe. I want to be able to call the police in my neighborhood. When they come, I don't want them to think that I'm a suspect. But what we're talking about is that the president of the United States is saying that there is a crime emergency in Washington, D.C. An emergency could be anything that he says it is. So from his definition, maybe there is. The data would say otherwise. But the issue that people keep citing is about the young people, the carjacking.
But the reality is an emergency could be whatever she says it is, too. Get some people on the show that are actually living in these communities and let them speak candidly. They probably won't go on because they're in fear that something may happen to them.
Right? The kids running into a CVS and taking things out the CVS. That is juvenile crime. And so how are
that's not juvenile crime. That's crime. If someone unalives you, does it matter if it's a juvenile or not? If someone takes your car and drives it into the ocean, does it matter if the person is 16 years old? Your car is still destroyed, and you may not even be able to acquire another car. This is rich people talk. Not only rich people talk, but talk from people who get paid to propagandize this type of stuff. Oh, it's no big deal. Somebody stole your car. No big deal. Somebody knocked you upside the head. It was only 13. Go let them do some arts and crafts. Come on.
The police officers or the National Guard are going to address the issue of juvenile crime. And until we start talking about the policy, let's talk about the crime bill that DC passed last year that could be strengthened, right? Let's talk about that. But Donald Trump is using rhetoric and playing on the real fears that some people have because of what they've seen on the news or maybe what they themselves have experienced. And
it's not what they've seen on the news.
She said he's playing on the real fear. She just said real because now she's getting flustered. Real fear of what people may have seen on the news or what they may have experienced. Then what the hell are you talking about then? If I've experienced it, then who are you to tell me what I see and what I'm experiencing? These people need to be off the air.
News. It's not what they've seen on the news. So I'm going to read this to you. This comes from somebody you know. It comes from somebody who's been a Democrat their entire life. It comes from somebody who lives in D.C. and has seen violence all around. Again, even as crime drops. Now, sometimes those statistics, they're leading indicators of what's going to happen. I know in New York City, we kept hearing about crime crime dropping in 21, 22, 23. You started to feel it in 23. So who knows? Maybe these people will start to feel it in 23. But this lifelong Democrat who's very active in Democratic politics said, I know he's doing it for politics, but crime seems rampant. I've had too many friends of mine who've had their cars carjacked, shot at. None of us will walk more than 3 blocks after 8 p.m. 13-year-olds are committing many of these crimes. Quite the change from a decade ago when things were much calmer. I guarantee you that's a person that has never voted for a Republican in their life.
Yeah, I never said it was Republicans, Joe. But the person is making the point about juveniles. I go back to juvenile
but hold on a
crime.
second. You're saying that people are...
What difference does it make? It's crime. Your car's still jacked. Your body is still unalived. Your home is still broken into. Your storefront that you worked your whole life to open up is still ransacked. You've still been beat down in the middle of the street. What difference does it make? It makes no difference. And she knows it makes no difference because if any of these things happen to her or her family, she'd be crying a whole different tune, guaranteed.
Imagining this, and first of all, we will agree on something. You said you've never been for defunding the police. Exactly, I understand that. I will say right here, the real problem with this is that Donald Trump uses anything to declare an emergency and be able to move unilaterally. We can name 20 things he's done, and it is a dangerous precedent for him to set. Dangerous not only because of him, but because future presidents will follow.
The same thing Newsom did during the so-called COVID era. Shut everything down. Put, concrete or something like that in the basketball courts. Took kids out of school while his kids remained in school. Then when the jibby jab came out, you had to get papers to participate in society, and yet you still have to pay taxes. So I pay you taxes, but I can't even go to my own doctor because unless I get the jibby jab, unless I inject a chemical into my veins, that has now been proven to be extremely harmful. Is that tyranny? Or, I mean, does that sound like democracy? Does that sound like freedom, what they're talking about? And that's their guy. In a few months, they'll be campaigning for him. These people are so disingenuous. It's just like, it should be obvious, but the lie is so big. The lie is so big. It's like, they couldn't be lying that big. That's impossible.
This example, if the Supreme Court doesn't stop it in its tracks. But all I'm saying is, this isn't imagined. Like people that you know, that I know, that we love, they and their friends don't feel safe in Washington, D.C. And it's not because they see it on TV.
So what Simone Sanders said is like claiming, when I walk through Beverly Hills, I don't feel unsafe. Of course you don't. Everyone knows you don't play around in Beverly Hills. You try it, the police will scoop you up so fast your head will spin. Same thing goes in Georgetown, which she mentioned. The difference, she doesn't live in the inner city. She's paid to make people believe it's not that bad. And notice, you won't see her strolling through the most dangerous neighborhoods. You won't see her strolling through Watts or Nickerson Gardens here in LA or anything like that. She knows the truth, but she took the deal. You know, one of the most disingenuous things out of people like Sanders is this: the claim that black people fear white people more than they fear other black people when it comes to safety. That is outrageous. And the funny part, most black commentators saying this are married to white people or spend their time in mostly white circles. Meanwhile, walk through the hood, you have to watch for gangbangers, you have to watch for muggers, you have to watch for carjackers. Walk through the west side of Los Angeles. 99% of the time, nobody bothers you, and everybody knows it. Then she tried to downplay juvenile crime as if store robberies, carjackings, and assaults are no big deal. That's insulting. For people who aren't rich, a car isn't a toy, it's survival. For a small business owner, a store represents years of sacrifice and sweat. And for employees or shoppers witnessing these crimes, it's traumatic. But she brushes it off for a paycheck, ignoring that terrorizing a neighborhood is not any less damaging just because the criminal is 13 instead of 30. And here's the core problem. Juveniles commit these crimes because they know nothing will happen to them. In fact, older criminals use kids as pawns for that very reason. If you want to stop it, the law has to carry real consequences for everyone, regardless of age, because the end result, a stolen life, a destroyed livelihood, It's the same no matter how old the offender is. You know, at the end of the day, what good is being rich if you can't walk more than a few blocks without worrying about getting knocked out, robbed, or worse? What good is living in a city where safety only exists in small pockets and everything outside of them is chaos? That's the real conversation they don't want to have. So we'll just wait. Luckily, Donald Trump is doing something about it, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm Wolf Kage, and this has been Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Until the next time, stay unwoke in peace.